Welcome to Harmonic Alignment, episode 70. I am so filled with gratitude and excitement for our next guest, Dr. Kevin Preston. I feel like Dr. Kevin is one of the incredible change makers on our planet. He is here to help us create a new earth, a more beautiful place. He's here to help us up level as humans and to become the brightest, healthiest, shiniest version of ourselves. And it's such a joy to be in his presence. He represents to me, I think, the healthiest version of divine masculine. Strength, power, wisdom, compassion, and nurturing rolled into one. And it's such a gift to be able to connect with him and to have been a part of his New Human event last fall with Dr. Zach Bush. And I'm just couldn't be more excited to be going back this year in Canada. And he's going to talk about his upcoming event, The New Human, in British Columbia in October. He has a special announcement coming. I think he just released that Richard Rudd, who I think is kind of like the father, grandfather to us all through the Gene Keys, is going to be there in person. And so that's a rare opportunity to get to be in his presence as well. Kevin's creating these incredibly powerful events that are helping souls come together in person to create new relationships, to create healing, and to forge a beautiful path together. More about Dr. Kevin, you can find him at drkevinpreston.com. You can also find him at thenewhumanevents.com. You can follow him on Instagram as well. Dr. Kevin has helped thousands of patients get to the root cause and resolve their symptoms. He's been fusing traditional Chinese medicine, quantum physics, and biological medicine since 2009. He is really changing the way we look at health and wellness. He works privately with high-impact leaders, groups, and entrepreneurs to illuminate key areas of their lives that need to shift alongside their health and businesses. He's passionate about igniting the fire within everyone he works with through online group programs, public speaking, hosting large in-person events, and leading powerful adventure retreats. So without further ado, find a fun place to listen to this episode. Maybe it's going for a walk in nature, or maybe it's just sitting with stillness. You're going to want to listen to this one a couple of times because Dr. Kevin is really sharing beautiful, beautiful wisdom. So, Dr. Kevin Preston and his beautiful wisdom. I am so excited today on Harmonic Alignment. I am with a new friend. It feels like I've known you for a long time. Dr. Kevin Preston, welcome.
Thank you for having me. And it does feel that way to me too. It's like, of course I've always known you.
Right? I remember the first time I saw you and Zach Bush together and I'm like, I think they're brothers. I could feel that energy of you guys knowing each other. And that's actually how we met, through Zach. Zach had brought William Vitalis and I to help with his presentation. We did some music with him at your New Human event, which, Dr. Kevin, that was such a cool event. And I just started using this line at your event, was like, it's so great to meet you again for the first time. Because I felt like I met so many people that I felt like I knew.
I think that's part of the magic that's happening, in my life and many people's lives, really, is we're being brought together again. The people that are part of your path or part of your journey. And we use this terminology like soul family, but whether it's that or something else, there is a familiar feeling. And I've seen that in my events as well. And a lot of people do comment on that it feels like they're home and they meet all these amazing other humans. It's like, hey, there's other people like me. And maybe we think about the world in a unique way and it's all welcome. And so we're so grateful to have you and so grateful to Zach for bringing you along last year and getting to hear your voice and be around your energy. Yeah, you brought so much to the event and filled my heart for sure.
From Autumn Sky and Stephanie, there were so many cool souls that were there holding this incredible space, and so many incredible healing practitioners that are in your circle of all people who are here to have a bigger impact on the world. It's like you have a devout following of healers who are helping others.
I think if we each work on our individual health and vitality in whatever way that can express in the world, then that affects everybody around us. And I've got to meet so many amazing people in my local region here in the Okanagan, like Vernon area, Armstrong area. And it's kind of a sneaky area of the world that a lot of people don't think of necessarily as a bit of a spiritual mecca or healing mecca, but it seems to be becoming that. And there's a lot of wizard-like folks around here, and practitioners of all walks of life and different histories. And it seems like a really beautiful convergence here, which is one of the reasons I love hosting the New Human in this area. There's potent energy here that people seem to discover when they come here and often surprised by.
Absolutely. It's such a beautiful, breathtaking place to be in nature and to have an event called New Human. So tell me, New Human, what does that mean for you?
Well, I've been working in the clinic for 18 years now as a Chinese medicine doc, and I've had thousands and thousands of beautiful conversations with amazing humans from all walks of life as well. And I get to see it all. I get to see the ups and the downs and the healing, and I get to see miracles happen as well. And I had this vision years back about having a bigger gathering, and I'd already been doing smaller retreats and things with like 10, 12 people, 15, 20 people over weekends, and sometimes longer, 5-6 days. And I was seeing huge transformation in those people and in myself, and thinking, oh, if we could get even more people together, even for one day. And so I ended up doing this event before the New Human was ever born, and it was called Yangstis. We had it around summer solstice back in 2022. And we had about 100 people, and it was just a one-day event. And that was kind of my intention, is I wanted to do something local, something for the community here, and something that was really easily accessible. It was a Saturday, so most people wouldn't have to take a day off work, and it was, relatively inexpensive. And just to see, like, what would happen if we gathered in that way. And it went really well. And I also got to discover, is this something I even want to do? It's feeling the guidance to do something like that. And it went well. And I felt there was something that opened in me. And then we did another one a few months later. And again, it was just a one-day event. And it was kind of after that I started having this vision for, what about 2 days? What if we did something a little bit longer? And then as it happens when I'm running in the forest or sitting by trees or water or meditating, these ideas drop in more and I get shown visions about things. And I remember sitting there thinking, okay, I've got the vision. Here's how I want to see it come together. And I wasn't sure on the timeline yet. And, I often do this and put it out to the universe as well. I'm going to need to call this something. And it took maybe a couple weeks, and then things come to find me, usually when I'm not thinking about it. And the New Human is what dropped in. And admittedly, I didn't actually love the name to begin with. And I sat with it for a little bit, but it just was kind of relentless and it wouldn't go away. And nothing better seemed to be dropping in. And now, of course, after we've done 4 events and we're planning our 5th for this year, it seems very fitting. And then as these layers unfolds in humanity, there's a lot going on. And I don't think you can be on the planet right now without seeing or sensing that there's huge change happening, both, I think, inwardly for us as human beings and individuals, but massive collective change. The earth is in on it, and there's so many different threads we could pull. And I think the New Human, really, as I've come to understand it more, being a guide or a steward of this energy or this movement, coming through, is that we get to be human as well, that we don't have to be perfect. And yes, it gets a bit messy at times. And at the same time, miracles happen and community happens and really, really deep connection happens. And people's bodies become healthier as a result. That's what we've been seeing.
I love that. A few years ago, I had a conversation with a dear friend, and he said, there's this new thing happening. He called it the new elite. And he said, what's going to matter isn't going to matter how much money is in your bank account. It's, are you solid in body, mind, and spirit? And you will have a much smaller footprint. It won't matter how big your house is. You will be a steward connected in the world and connecting more with nature and your fellow humans in a different way. So it's time. It's time.
It is time.
So you're coming up on your 5th New Human event, and it sounds like each year they get bigger and better.
That seems to be the trend. It continues to grow. And we had people from all over the world last year and the year before as well. And Zach's been a couple times, and we've had amazing other speakers join us from around the world as well. And it seems like the common thread of anybody that's on the stage, that there's a huge amount of authenticity that shows up, that they're human too. Nobody's, any guru or wiser than anybody else in the room, because it is the collective energy of everybody that shows up to the event. So we had close to 600 people last year, and it just felt like we were all moving in a river together. And that current of life that flows through us. And especially because my background is Chinese medicine, I've always viewed the body that way, that there's an internal underground river system of little creeks and streams and lakes and oceans. And it's described that way in Chinese medicine philosophy too, that we can also bring that into the external world. And I think that's where a lot of us are coming back together again, remembering one another. And when we're in proximity, when we're in person, something really special happens. And I love that we have technology that we can use. And that's been a huge connecting tool for many of us, and being able to do podcasts like this as well. And in person though, feet on the ground, a hand on the shoulder or eye to eye, where there's nothing as a barrier in between. There's something extra special. And that's why I want to keep doing in-person events like this, because the amount of messages that I get through the event and after the event are often almost overwhelming of what happens for people, and people having physical ailments that get healed, and meeting other friends, and, creating new business partnerships and other podcasts, and a lot of really amazing things happen with the people from that event. And I've talked to some of the speakers over the last few years that are like, Kevin, since the event, everything's just grown and expanded, and the most amazing things are happening. And I don't know if I'm doing anything special, really. I love creating a bridge for people, and I love creating that space where we can dive into a deeply held, beautiful container. Then things unfold more organically. They unfold in a way of maybe more grace finds each of us, through the event, but also after the event. And so this year, and I'm not really attached to it growing in number necessarily, because this is something I've been reflecting on for years, of what's the most important thing in life. And that might be a different answer for everybody, but what it keeps showing up in my life around is relationships. Certainly we could say relationships sometimes are the most challenging things that we face as humans, and where the greatest source of conflict is, and at the same time is where the greatest amount of love and connection and expansion and breakthroughs happen, is through each of us. And we can't really take anything with us, as far as I'm aware, when our time is done here in the physical body. But I do believe we take our memories and our impacts, and, all these quotes that other people have said, before my time as well, that people remember how you made them feel. And there's something really beautiful about that. And I've had many patient visits over the years that some of the people have had near-death experiences, and they've been to the other side, and they have these insights and knowledge. And when they come back, this is usually what they're talking about, is living their life more for them, and trusting their own heart more, and almost like risking love more. We get complacent, or we get scared at times, and I've definitely been there many times. I'm scared every other day of the week anyway about life, and I have fears, but I've learned how to dance with that more. It allows me to get to know myself more, wherever that fear's coming up, of where am I not being open-hearted? And it's usually coming back to, well, I'm just scared about something. And then if I sit with that fear, or work with that a little bit more, then things just naturally open. I think as people, we naturally want to connect, and we want to open. And there might be a lot of things and woundings and, challenges that we've been through that have us not do that. But I think it's still in there all the time.
Oh, Kevin, thank you for creating that in-person space, because you're right. Connecting electronically is wonderful, but there is a magic that happens. It's like the magic sauce of when like-minded souls come together. I feel practically high the whole time at those events. Like I just feel almost like giddy. It's like, no. This is the happy person that I was, my original blueprint. I am like back more in alignment in that space, because the doubts, the fears, the insecurities, and my heart is more open. That's the place I want to create from and be from. So thank you for giving that gift of that opportunity for people. So it's this year coming up October.
Yeah, October 2nd to 4th, 2026. We're back in the beautiful Okanagan, North Okanagan. We're actually going back to the Splatscene Center, which is where the New Human was born. That's where we held our first few events. And then we were at Flower Farm, CC Bloom, Amazing Humans last year. And, you were there. We had the big tent and vendor village and all these amazing parts. And we feel called to go back to the Splatscene, and it's an Indigenous community center that's not far from actually where I live here. And the people we've been weaving together right from the beginning, made some amazing friends, and there's the wisdom of the land that we're always, connecting into as well. And we know this region, this territory is really, really potent, and it feels like there's these energetic grids that run through, and there's rivers and lakes and mountains, for anybody that hasn't been to this beautiful part of the world. And I am really grateful. It feels like it holds us really, really well. And the building itself was meant to become the newer version of the roundhouse. So it's a giant round building with huge logs and a big open ceiling up to the center, where there's this like pillar of light that comes through, and it's pretty unmistakable when you set foot in there. There's something that happens in the body, and there's many events that happen there. And so it feels really good to be going back, because the theme this year is called ReUnion. And that was also something that dropped in when I was running in the forest. I remember where it happened. I was thinking, months ago, because I've been working on this new event for months already, even before we did the last one, of we're going to need to call it something, but it's more than just a name of what is the underlying theme. So last year it was interstellar. The year before it was regeneration. And this year ReUnion is what dropped in. And what that meant to me in my body as I was coming through is unity. That's the union part. And I believe the reunion is coming back together as humanity, and even reunion as a word, it often means when there's been disconnect or separation, that there's a reconnection again. And so now I understand why that dropped in and why we have that theme. And so it feels like, this is our 5th event coming up. It will be a bit of a reunion for a lot of the people that have been to past events and then going back into that building again. But we have also grown a lot. And so we're coming into that building as new humans, as new people, as a new expansion and new expression, more wisdom, more learning. How can we continue to improve the events and have a greater impact, and just see, people really coming into themselves more, because I do think that's an important thing for the whole planet right now, as each of us drop into our seat inside our bodies a bit further.
Well, I can't wait. I'm coming. So I highly recommend it. I heard so many good things about that venue that I haven't been able to see. I'm so excited. You're bringing in the native wisdom that's there with the indigenous peoples, that it's so beautiful how they are part of that ceremony and part of the story that you're unfolding as you bring us all together. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's my honor. I keep feeling all this energy move through my body around doing these events. So I'm going to continue.
Yeah. Well, speaking of energy, I think one of the things that we both have in common, and I don't even know if you realize this, but I use the iMate, Dr. Bernard Straley's biofeedback device. I'm also an energy for life practitioner. And so I'm all about understanding how energy flows through the body, and the energy blockages cause disease in the body. And it also sounds like you are doing some form of a biofeedback. We have a mutual friend, Linda D. I was just on the phone with her last night, and she's a huge Dr. Kevin fan, but she says you are using this technology in a very unique and beautiful healing way. Can you share some of your work that you do with folks one-on-one?
Yeah, going back to the beginning a little bit. I'm a farm kid from Alberta, spent a lot of time in the forest growing up, fishing and hunting and just being in nature. And then as my path wove me forward, I ended up going into science for a while when I got into school. And I thought I might go into Western medicine or sports physician, territory. Had a lot of injuries, played a lot of sports. And there was a time I was interested in veterinary medicine too, actually, and worked with a lot of animals growing up, and, being on farms, and everybody in our neighborhood had farms and animals of all kinds. And it wasn't unusual to just be sitting with a pile of like puppies crawling all over you, or chickens or goats or horses. The further I go into my own career in medicine and events and things like that, the more grateful I am for that upbringing of really connected with nature, really connected with land. And then when I end up getting into Chinese medicine through, getting acupuncture as first a patient years ago, I didn't really know much about it, but it worked really, really well for injuries I was having in like post knee surgery, and it sparked something, or maybe more accurately, it had me remember something. There's something that woke up inside my body. Once I started learning herbal medicine, it just deepened further and further of all these things I didn't really know about, or I hadn't recalled yet, maybe in this lifetime. And then it started landing in my body and my spirit and my psyche in that direction of medicine and alchemy and herbal magic formulas and things like that. It just deepened more and more and more. And I started to learn more about energy in the body and chi and like vital force. But I think my practical upbringing really connected with that aspect of Chinese medicine, because Chinese medicine philosophy is about living in harmony with nature as much as possible, through the seasons, the way that we eat ideally locally, and during spring and summer, it's different than the fall and the winter. And winter is more like deep earth, like root vegetables ideally, and some of those aspects that nourish the body and meet the body where the energy is. And we can feel it right now as of this recording. We're in like springtime here in Canada, in the northern hemisphere, and you can feel the energy coming up through the body more. And it's like the plants are waking up, and buds of flowers are starting to show up, and the grass is starting to grow. And so we can harness that energy through the seasons. And I love that. As I learned this philosophy more, it just seemed to really make sense to me. It really spoke to me. And even the philosophy of Chinese medicine is viewing the body as a garden. And, the way we water it, there's enough sunlight, or the health of the soil, all of that is in consideration. And really it's looking at the body very holistically. There's nothing that's like separate within our system, including the emotions. And that's another facet that I think in North America, most of us weren't taught growing up, that, the emotions are actually not separate from your body and your function and your physicality, that they weave together. And so I think weaving over the years and learning and treating thousands of people, and then getting more into learning about frequency and learning about biological medicine and toxins and bacteria and metals and chemicals and all these things in the environment, I just kind of kept stacking all that data and information. I'm a person that asks questions. I'm really curious. But I think the underlying foundation for doing some of the work that I'm doing now, and looking at toxins in the body and looking at how the body responds to our environment, it's still like deeply rooted in Chinese medicine theory and philosophy and all the things they figured out thousands of years ago. So that's the foundation of it.
Yeah, I love that. I've heard it said one time, 90% of a person's health issues could be directly related back to what they think and feel. So I imagine you're dealing with a variety of health issues. Is there anything particularly that people come to see you for, or is it like it's all connected, right?
Yeah, it seems to be all connected. And to your point, I don't think there's anything that's not aware of itself within our bodies. Our bodies are so intelligent, and I do see energy as everything in the system. And so when I see somebody in person, I'm really looking at what's everything that's had a hand in creating this illness that's happening for them right now, or anything that's lack of vitality or just fatigue or those types of things. And so I would say autoimmune conditions are a huge part of what I've been seeing for many, many years, and kind of the whole gamut of things like Lyme disease, fibromyalgia, and chronic fatigue, and a lot of gut disturbances, and a lot of inflammatory bowel conditions as well. And then a lot of neurological pieces too. And, chronic neurological conditions, all of these categories seem to be growing exponentially, unfortunately, and we could point to all the reasons that is showing up for on the planet. I've worked in a lot of fertility cases as well, or infertility cases, and seemingly that got me into treating a lot of pediatrics and kids over the years, of people then go on to have babies, and those kids grow up and sometimes need some support along the way too. So it's been really beautiful. And so I've been taking the ideas and philosophy of Chinese medicine and biological medicine and toxins. And then I studied genetics for a little while, just as like a side hobby project, I guess you would say, of how do our bodies express? And if energy is everything, what is it that's coming forward? Because I don't believe your genes are solely responsible for the illnesses that show up or don't show up. Our thoughts, our mood, our emotions, the toxin exposure we had, how we eat, all of that factors in, I think, to expressing epigenetically some of these illnesses that show up. And I believe there's a reason for it. I do testing in the clinic, and I just call it toxicity testing for lack of a better term, but I'm testing acupuncture points on the fingers and the toes. And those are basically the start and the end of each of the major meridians of the body. And so you can end up doing a beautiful baseline scan of the system to have an idea, and still from my lens of, looking at somebody's tongue or feeling their pulse, if anybody's listening, seeing a Chinese medicine practitioner. And then I have my hands on people. I am one of those docs that still feels the chi through the meridians, and I do a lot of meridian palpation because it tells me so much about the health of the tissue. I like feeling the fascia and touching the skin, and how do the feet and the ankles and the toes feel, and even like lower legs and forearms and everything else, because the meridians flow through the whole body. And somebody's complexion, how they sit, how they walk, how they talk, all of these things we're taking in. And then when I'm testing, I'm looking at the conductivity of the meridian points. And what they discovered over the years with beautiful research and beautiful technology is Chinese medicine figured out a lot. I don't know who the first one to map the meridian system was, or where it came from, this planet or other planets, but thank you for the map that we have of how the energy flows between organ systems. And then it turns out if you have the right technology, you can measure that. Mm-hmm. And acupuncture points specifically have 20 times the conductivity compared to the skin around them. And I've always thought that was beautifully fascinating of what are these windows and portals of voltage and information and data into the body. And even doing acupuncture, that's essentially what we're doing, is helping balance and harmonize that energetic electrical grid of the system, because our bodies are electromagnetic batteries. We're producing voltage and signal all the time and frequency. So when that's off, you can measure that, and then you can start unpacking and going a little bit deeper of how did this happen? Why is this person sitting here with whatever the presenting issues are? And definitely over the years, the longer I practice, the more I'm convinced completely that most things do stem from the emotional, mental realms, the energetic realms in the body before it becomes physical. And it seems like the physical is the last thing to actually manifest symptomology, but it begins way sooner than that.
When you work with clients, how are you trying to help them understand that emotional component? Or are you asking them questions about childhood trauma or relationship trauma?
I usually ask a few questions right off the bat, and the main simple ones is, why are you here? What's brought you here? And sometimes they don't even fully know. I think there's a lot of magic that happens that they're brought to me for a reason. And I usually find that people that get to the clinic and new patients, that they're ready for a change. And they may not even know to the extent of what that means, because sometimes that's relationships, career, certainly health is obviously one of the driving factors of why they show up. And then I'll do this weird thing in medicine, it seems like, where I just listen. And I don't know if it's a lost art or what it is, but I find I learn a lot about patients by listening to them and asking them questions. Even what do they think the issues are? Because a lot of people actually know, or they have an idea of, well, this happened and then this happened and I've never been the same since. And I think it's related to that, but maybe they've seen a lot of practitioners and, maybe other practitioners have sort of talked them out of it of, oh no, that wouldn't affect you. That's too far in the past. And so we often do go deeply into the past. And sometimes that leads us to talking about childhood or, even recent times, like what's happening in your life right now that's creating like a constriction of energy flow through the organ network. And that can lead us to all kinds of places, because I think everything is fair game when it comes to the body.
The lost art of listening. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm always amazed, even in a conversation, like we all know people who never ask you a question, they just talk, and you realize like, well, what's the fun in that? I don't want to hear my own self-talk. I want to be curious about what's going on with that other person. That's the fun stuff. Dr. Kevin, if you had the ability to speak to every soul on the planet, what do you think some information or insight are you feeling called to share?
I've been in a theme, I would say, in my own life around simplicity. And And from the outside looking in, you might say, that doesn't look simple, Kevin. You're doing a lot of things. And there's still more work for me to be doing in that area. But what I'm noticing is that time, the felt sense of time anyway, and I'd be curious what you feel around this, that it's been really expansive and contractive, but like spiraling and speeding up in some ways. And my notion of time seems different than it used to be. And I haven't fully wrapped my head around that, but I'm curious about it. And I've heard other people speaking about this recently too, of what's happening energetically on the planet, what's happening for each of us as individuals. And I've been called to do my best to come into more slowness and more stillness, not necessarily in opposition to that speed or that chaos or the amount of stimulus that we're met with, the amount of data and information. And, obviously we're in a huge AI explosion right now, and I'm not convinced it's good or bad. I'm not sure yet. I'm still in my investigative process, and I think you're into human design as well. I'm a 5-1, and the line 1's the heretical investigator. And so I definitely take my time. I love to unpack things, sometimes over a long period of time, so that I can understand it. So I've been doing my best to understand AI, within my own being, but also collectively. And what does that mean for us? And of course, my lens is, what does that mean for our health, our nervous systems, our psyches? And what I've been feeling again and again is, the body needs slowness. And it needs stillness. And that might look different for each person, because I've also been learning more about that for me, that it doesn't mean I'm just sitting here meditating on a rock, although yes, that happens too. But how can I be in stillness while I'm in the world, presenting, speaking, having conversations in the clinic, leading events, whatever it might be, traveling, that there's a deeper groundedness and stillness in my own body all the time. And can I move from that place into the world and still create and everything else? And when there's dynamic energy moving through me, that I really move with that. But I guess what I'm saying too is just coming into more presence, coming into more awareness, and taking my time to digest things or observe things, and maybe give a bit more pause before I say something, or before I speak, or before I act, because there's that evolution in my own system of, I think, more wisdom, hopefully, coming online at times, and more resourcefulness, and just seeing through a different lens at times. And actually recently I did a darkness retreat, and that definitely showed me more of that. It showed me more stillness, that there was even more available in my own system, because I was in the dark for 4 days. And so I had time to get really, really still. And, the mind fights that a little bit, or in my case, it did for the first couple of days. It was just kind of like burning off energy, burning off excessive stimulation and thoughts and ideas and all these things. And that wasn't bad either, but it was almost, I could watch my brain just need to process and do a lot. And after a couple of days, it finally settled a little bit more, and I could feel dropping into my heart more and dropping into the body more. But I didn't want to stop that process, because I could feel that is part of the process in getting to more presence and more stillness. Is the mind's going to have energy to burn off, and obviously you rein it in where needed. But I had time to see, what if I just let it go and do its thing like a wild horse? It's going to tire out eventually, hopefully it will. And it did. And then really cool things started happening, and I found myself feeling more peaceful inside and much more still. And there was a new level that got to open up. So that's what I'm noticing, for me and lots of people. A lot of people seem to be craving that, but not really sure how to get there, how to create it.
I love that. I absolutely feel my most connected when I am in stillness in nature. There's this space where I think it's connecting with, I call it divine source, God. And it's this peace that comes over, like the peace that passes all understanding. Like I feel, and in that moment, it feels like nothing else matters. I can actually stop with the to-do list, or stop thinking about, oh my gosh, the next thing. 4 days in the darkness. Okay. Are you going to go back and do it again? Do you recommend it to folks? What do we need to know about if someone's thinking about doing a darkness retreat?
I would do it again. Yeah, I would. And I'd be curious about doing even longer the next time now that I've been through a round. And like many things, I'm sure it's completely different every time. And it's like reading a book and then reading again a year or two later, you're probably going to see it differently, hear it differently, maybe read words that you didn't even see the first time. And I think this first pass through the dark was offering me a lot of spaciousness and rest. And those are things that I wanted and needed. And I booked it 2.5 years ago, which is also kind of interesting that I was waiting to be able to drop in. And I'm really glad it lined up when it did, because I feel like I maybe got more out of it now than I would have 2.5 years ago, because I think even back then I was probably even more in the mind than I am now. And there would have been even more to sort of unpack and move through. And it is probably something that's not for everybody. And I think it might be one of those things that you got to feel called to, or have a pull or curiosity that there's something in an experience like that that may speak to each person differently. Because I remember telling some of my friends about it, or people I know here, and some of them, just the face that they'd make of like, what? Why would you go to the dark for 4 nights? Like, what's the point? And I didn't have a lot of answers. Like, I don't know. I feel called to do this. I felt that pull or that intuition, back a few years ago when I was looking into it. And I definitely found a new gear in myself of peace, of more of that inner stillness. And people talk about it. It's in many writings and teachings and books. And I found it in my body more, I would say, because by the time I came out of there, I noticed in my system, in my muscles, in my mind, in my heart, in my body, and even in my bones, that I was at a new level of stillness inside. Like, it wasn't coming from the outside, it was coming from the inside. And I would even venture to say, like, inner peace was felt more than I'd previously felt it before. And I don't think there's a destination necessarily for that, but I was aware in my system how calm I was and how relaxed I was when Scott, my host, came to bring me back into the light and walks me, with the eye shade still on, over to a chair and sitting, and just the fresh air touching my face and breathing all the plants and the trees, and you could just feel the aliveness of nature again, and bare feet on the ground, and then sitting in the chair and eventually pulling the eye shades off and taking in the world again. But I felt so calm. It's like I could have sat in that chair forever. It was a really unique feeling.
Oh, I love that. It reminded me of my first 4-day water fast. I had a berry and I was like, this is the greatest berry of all time. Like, it'll never taste this good again, Oh, I love that. So where can people find you, Dr. Kevin? Where can we follow you and get more of your wisdom?
I'm still on Instagram and Facebook, and it's just Dr. Kevin Preston. And then my website is also Dr. Kevin Preston. And then we have our newhumanevents.com website that hosts all of the event stuff that we're doing and talking about. I'm off to Madeira, Portugal in less than a week, and hosting with beautiful friends that you know as well through the New Human, Heidi and Pam. And yeah, we've got some adventurous souls that decided to say yes. So we're taking a group and we're going to do some adventure, and we're doing canyoning, and we're going swimming with dolphins out in the open ocean, and we're going paragliding. There is a lot of surprises, and I do like providing beautiful surprises to, give people a chance to meet parts of themselves that maybe they wouldn't, or say yes to something they wouldn't normally do in their day-to-day life. And that helps them find these other parts of themselves that maybe need more illumination and need to be sparked and activated and brought forward. And so you'll see some of the adventures of Kevin through some of those places, social media. People can reach out, send us an email if you have any questions and things like that, because I am still working with patients in the clinic, and I'm out of the clinic more than I used to be, for sure, for adventures coming up and speaking and also working on bigger events, because that connection and community, like we talked about, is really on my heart these days, because I see how important it is for the health of the body.
Oh, thank you. I want to go on one of your grand adventures, so sign me up for the next one.
Sounds good.
One of the questions I love to ask is, what does harmonic alignment mean to you?
I think you've probably seen it, and many people may know this word, but it's been in my fields more alive lately. And it's when birds or even fish are all flying together. And Zach has spoken about this too, the murmuration. And I just had that visual pop in when you were asking that. And, it's like when we're flowing together, and I think the notion that we're all one, and remembering that more and thinking about that more. And certainly that's part of the theme of the new human. So I think has been in my field, but it's in my field for a reason of that beautiful dynamic dance. When you see a flock of birds flying like that, they all look like one organism together. And so I think harmonic alignment is bringing that into humanity more, that we are one organism, that there could be a lot more harmony in our flow together and our actions and the way that we speak and treat each other.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Kevin. That's my soul's purpose, that we are all one and we're all just walking each other home. And so you said that so beautifully. And I love that visual with the birds. So such an honor to have you on Harmonic Alignment. Thank you for all the light and wisdom you bring in the world. I'm so grateful.
Oh, thank you. Absolute pleasure. And just a note too, like when I went to pick up Dr. Zach from the airport, I saw you standing there, but I hadn't met you yet. But what I saw was this incredibly bright and felt sense of energy moving through. And I hadn't yet put it together. Like, it should have been obvious that was you, but I was also aware of your presence there, of, wow, who's that? And then as that came out and then you came over, I'm like, oh, of course, this is Priscilla, this person I haven't met yet, but that's coming to my event. It all made sense. But you had this really bright energy, like effervescing, standing in the airport. And yeah, it was really beautiful to have you on stage with us and, be at the speaker house and being able to connect and chat. And so thanks for this invitation here. And yeah, so grateful to know.
Such an honor. And a big shout out to your daughter, because I am such a huge fan of your beautiful redheaded daughter and her taste in music. And everyone I met was just such a treat. So, well, I'm going to be, I know for sure, hanging out with you in October, maybe multiple October events to be continued. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Harmonic Alignment. If something resonated with you, we would love to hear about it. Please consider leaving us a 5-star review and subscribing so you don't miss an upcoming episode. Thank you.